This is the story of some unique men of all colors bonded by triumph and tragedy, by life and death. It is not an argument on whether the war in Vietnam was right or wrong. Politics and politicians are often difficult to understand. When your government sends you to battle, you go. Theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die, Tennyson wrote. This is the first book to be written on Company F, 52nd Infantry LRPs, and Company I, 75th Infantry Rangers. We served the 1st Infantry Division proudly in Vietnam, and our stories need to be told. To POWs, MIAs, and their families. Just as hunger, thirst, and torture can be fathomed only by those who endure the same, the agony and torment of feeling abandoned by one's country can be understood only by those who experience it. The great price you are paying for freedom can never be compensated for. To those families that endure despite the loss of loved ones, you have experienced pain beyond what others can understand. All we can say is thank you all for the sacrifices you make for the United States of America. We will not forget. God bless you, and let freedom ring. To America's youth, what part will you play in life to be a productive citizen, contributing to your fellow Americans and to freedom? Many have different ideas about war, especially about the one fought in Vietnam. My intentions are not to justify, condone, or condemn our part in that war, but to show a perspective many have not seen. The men and women who served in Vietnam carry scars, physical and emotional, that you may one day have to bear. I hate war and its atrocities, but I love freedom more passionately. Is living under bondage really living? Our government sent us, and we went. Does that make us villains or victims? Try to put yourselves in our shoes after hearing this program and understand some of what we have gone through. If you must experience combat, go for the right reason, to protect freedom and families. And if you must go, may you go to win, with the government and citizens' full support. If we must fight, winning must be the objective. To the veterans, what can we say to you for your service and sacrifice on behalf of the United States of America? Thank you. Whether you served in combat or not, you served. Leaving your family and friends and spending many lonely months away is a sacrifice of service. To my fellow Vietnam combat vets, I stand with you in memory of the horrible ordeals and in the feeling of abandonment by those who sent us but would not allow us to win. We served faithfully and never lost a major battle, but our hands were cuffed by politicians who controlled us like pawns in a chess match. Yet war is not a game. All the way. Since I've been old enough to remember, adventure and excitement have always captured my attention. Westerns and war movies were my favorites, and I loved it when the Earps beat the Clantons to the draw at the OK Corral, and the Marines mowed down the Japanese human wave assaults on Guadalcanal. It was the way of the warrior, the way it was supposed to be done. I still remember Hopalong Cassidy mounted on the back of his snow-white stallion Topper as he passed by me during a parade down the streets of Tulsa, Oklahoma, my hometown. Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Davy Crockett, and Daniel Boone were my heroes. John Wayne, Gary Cooper, Alan Ladd, and Randolph Scott were my favorite tough guys. For hours at a time, my childhood friends and I played cowboys and Indians. Then we would switch to being combat soldiers during World War II, using sticks as weapons if guns were not available. Many battles raged daily through our neighborhood, and the good guys always won. At an early age, my first BB gun was a constant companion, and then, on my 6th birthday, I was given the ultimate weapon, a single-shot .22 caliber rifle. After drilling me with an extended course in gun safety and showing me how to care for it, my dad taught me how to shoot. We spent many hours rabbit and squirrel hunting along the Arkansas River. I could hardly wait until the hunting seasons opened in the fall. After I graduated from high school, my career path seemed unclear. I considered coaching or being a government hunter or game warden, but nothing really seemed very appealing. After a stint at North Texas State University, I returned home and met up with a friend who was home from Vietnam on a 30-day extension leave. He was in Special Forces, SF, and he was going back for 6 more months. After spending some quality time talking with him and reading a brochure about SF, I decided that it was just the challenge I had been looking for, and the two of us headed off on his motorcycle to Arlington, Texas, to talk to an Army recruiter. I enlisted for Special Forces and departed for basic combat training at Fort Polk, Louisiana in October 1967. After graduation, I was transferred to Fort Huachuca, Arizona to attend Morse Code School, a critical MOS, Military Occupational Specialty, for Special Forces. Fort Benning, Georgia was my next stop. I had already made the decision to attend airborne school as soon as I finished Morse code classes. The very thought of being a paratrooper excited me, though I had always been afraid of heights. I arrived a few days before our class actually started, so I had the distinct pleasure of serving on KP, an experience not worth telling about. It was not an enjoyable episode. Airborne training officially began on a Monday with ground week, mental harassment, and physical conditioning, which meant run, 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 everywhere we went. Obviously, it was an attempt by the cadre to run the less committed trainees into quitting. A few did. We also practiced our PLFs, parachute landing falls, to make sure that if the fall didn't kill us, we could survive the landing. We also practiced exiting the aircraft properly. This was important because a bad exit could result in a number of major problems when a chute opens, any of which could result in a crash and burn arrival on the drop zone, 1,250 feet below. The commands of stand up, hook up, and shuffle to the door were drummed into our heads over and over again. Week 2, Tower Week, consisted of training on the 34-foot and 250-foot towers. The first simulated the shock of the parachute opening, and the second gave us a taste of falling under a full canopy. They separated the men from the boys and gave us a sample of what we would be experiencing during an actual jump. Finally, Jump Week was upon us, the climax to the previous 2 weeks' training. That was the week that would see us making 5 actual parachute jumps, the number needed to qualify for the coveted jump wings of a paratrooper. Quite a few guys washed out of the program during that critical week in our training, and our jump class was significantly smaller as we approached graduation day. What a rush it was to stand in the door and fling myself up and out into the prop blast. When the chute opened seconds later and I looked up to see that oversized canopy fully deployed, there was no thrill like it anywhere on the face of the earth. When we graduated after our 5th jump, Colonel Welch, the Airborne School Commandant, congratulated us and welcomed us into the elite airborne brotherhood. I was pleasantly surprised to discover that I had been promoted to the rank of Private First Class, E3, right after graduation. I took the Special Forces battery test, a 4-hour written exam, shortly after completing jump school. I was informed the next day that my scores were acceptable and that I was off to Special Forces Training Group at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Fort Bragg was only a short distance out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and was also the home of the 82nd Airborne Division and the 18th Airborne Corps. When we arrived, we were bussed out to Smoke Bomb Hill and assigned to Training Group. I was excited that I would soon be able to wear the green beret and the crest emblazoned with the motto, De Oppresso Labere. We liberate the oppressed. But we had to complete 3 separate and very demanding phases of training before graduating and getting our group beret flash. Phase 1 was a mixture of physical conditioning, classroom training, and a survival exercise that involved a parachute deployment into a guerrilla-held area. The classroom training was interesting and germane to what we would be doing in the field. After completing the round of instruction, we were ready for the coming exercise. The survival exercise was to be a lesson in military tactics, conditioning, and endurance. We would begin the exercise by making a night parachute jump into a small drop zone. While being pursued by aggressor forces for several days, we would be forced to live off the land while navigating through thick, heavily forested terrain. We would have to practice patrol techniques, immediate action drills, and establish ambushes as we had been taught in the classroom phase of our training. During the jump, my stick was the last